gonna stop you crying, it's a sign of the times. We gotta get away from here. How long have you been here? What's up, gang? I hope everyone's having a great week so far. I know I am. I am very excited for the video topic today. In the first video, you may recall when I introduced the whole project behind this channel, I talked about how I wanted to become a storyteller. As we'll discuss in this video, and I hope to show, storytelling is one of the most fundamental skills or attributes that a person can have. So in general, just the idea of storytelling, it's been around forever. I mean, it's one of the few things that has stood the test of time from the beginning of man until where we're at. Stories were used to teach, they were used to entertain, they were used for all sorts of things, but however they were used, they conveyed information in a way that people were able to remember. And that's why whenever you look at any period in history, there have always been, I guess what you'd call career storytellers. And they came in all different forms. In religions, both ancient and current, spiritual leaders would tell stories from sacred texts to convey moral principles. In mythologies, from Roman to Norse, stories of the gods and of mighty warriors were used to teach people their ideals as a community and to pass down history from generation to generation. People whose job it was to maintain the culture and ethics of the society by telling stories to the younger generations. Or even just for entertainment's sake, you look at medieval times where you had bards and you had jesters and other people whose main role was just to entertain the king or the commoners. And today we have some of these same types of storytellers still around, but we have so many more. We've got movie stars, we've got musicians that tell stories with their songs, we've got stand-up comedians, we've got authors, we've got poets, we've got so many different formats for storytelling. And that's just some of the professions that would actually maybe claim that they were storytellers first and foremost. There's a lot more that actually use it, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The point that I hope to drive home today is that stories are powerful. Now, there may be some of you who would balk at that statement, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Now, I would argue that anyone who you acknowledge and maybe even subconsciously don't realize has influence over you, whether they're a famous person in some regard or their personal connection, I would argue that it's because either you like the stories they tell or their personal story itself is inspiring to you and you wish to emulate that. And the opposite goes for people that you don't like. It's that their stories abhor you and you do not want to be like them. So let me give you a few examples that show why pretty much fame or power comes down to one of those two things. So I'm going to give you a few examples, and I'm going to try and tell them as objectively as I can, not giving an opinion, because that's one of my goals, is to try and show the effects of stories without casting my own opinion on if they're good or bad. Eventually that's going to catch up to me, but for now, we're going to be objective. So, example number one, President Trump. Whether you like him or not, he was popular enough to get as many votes as he did because he told stories of a different America that spoke directly to a populace that often felt neglected when it came to political races. And by speaking directly to them, he won them over, got their votes, and he is now president. All because he told the stories that demographic wanted to hear. Number two, Justin Bieber. So, I mean, he's been on a roller coaster ride in his life, but I'm focusing on the beginning of why he became famous and what was so great and unique about his story. Now, some of you may remember, some of you may have no clue. Justin Bieber actually started out by recording songs on a guitar and putting them on YouTube. And this is when he was like probably, 13 years old? His story is interesting because somehow Usher discovered him and took him under his wing and turned him into this international pop star that we have today, who either love him or you hate him. But, so with Trump, it's more about the stories that he told. With Bieber, it's more about the story that he is. And then number three is kind of a hybrid example of that, which is J.K. Rowling. She won us over by telling a story that we all came to love and she earned our admiration for that. But then there's her personal story, which is this incredible journey of this impoverished woman living off of basically welfare system or whatever they call it in the UK. And she just went all in on this book, and it became a massive success, and now she's one of the wealthiest women in the world. And now, because she has these two sides of being a story and being a good storyteller, people adore her and they will take her word on anything. Don't believe me? Go to her Twitter account where she has over 10 million followers, and she tweets mostly about US politics and stuff like that, and people eat up everything. So now, if you think of somebody that you admire and you wish to emulate in some form, I guarantee you'll be able to trace somehow it's either that their story inspires you or that they tell stories that make you want to be a better person. And it's not, but so here's where it gets really crazy. It's not just things that are overtly labeled as, oh, this is a story. Pretty much anything that we encounter has a story attached to it. One quick example I'll tackle is sports. I mean, when you think of sports, you don't think, oh yes, that's good storytelling. But that's all sports is. I mean, whether it's breaking a 100-year-old curse, whether it's a clash of two titans that everyone is just breathlessly waiting to see who prevails, or maybe it's LeBron James. LeBron James is one of the richest stories in all of sports. I mean, first of all, he was the hometown kid who was the hero because he was the best there was. And then he became the villain by leaving them to get what was like an easy championship. And then he played the prodigal son who came back home and is vindicating himself by bringing one and hopefully more rings to his hometown. Like, whew, that's a pretty good story right there. Like, let me make this clear. ESPN would not have multiple channels of 24-hour programming if they were in the business of sports. They're in the business of storytelling. Now, the challenge with storytelling today is that we're just constantly bombarded with stories at every moment of the day. Because back in the day, a story was something that you heard when you were gathered around the fire, or when you're going to bed, or at a teaching moment. It wasn't just a casual thing. It was kind of a special moment. But stories are so much around us all the time that we've kind of become numb to recognizing what is a story, and we're not aware of when a story may be trying to persuade us. So persuasion is kind of a key word when it comes to stories, because that is the real power in storytelling. Whether it's a story that has a specific moral that tries to persuade you to think a certain way, or whether it's a story that just gives somebody credibility or likability, so all of a sudden they have more power to persuade you in a different regard. Persuasion is the real power behind storytelling. And so today we get in story mode when we expect a story. Like, we're watching a movie, we're reading a book, but we're foolish to think that that's the only time that stories are actually being thrown at us, because whether it's journalists or political figures or advertisers, they are constantly throwing stories our way. And so the problem is, with any type of power, there's a way to corrupt it. And so with storytelling, that corruption comes when persuasion comes to manipulation. I think we can all agree that stories elicit emotions. And so manipulation with storytelling happens when those weaknesses are exploited for the storyteller to achieve their end goal. And so our emotions are the target of manipulation when these things are used improperly. And so all of a sudden we see storytelling has a very dark side to it, because for better or for worse, we are nothing more than the sum of all of the stories that we believe in. And that's what fascinates me the most about storytelling. Guys, you can tell I'm getting excited right now. I just get so worked up in a good way when I think about how, like, every individual person is basically living their life with the opinions they have based on the stories they have been told in their lives that they have accepted as truth. It just fascinates me, and that's why I want to dedicate my life to mastering everything I can about storytelling. I want to understand perfectly how stories influence us based on our instincts and our previous experiences. I want to learn how to create a story to try and elicit a specific emotion or action
so I can better understand how that's being worked upon myself and everybody else. But I don't want to just become a master storyteller so that I can become like a master persuader. I want to do it so that I can then educate people and teach them how to be aware and make sure people can understand when their emotions are being used against them, or their habits and their cravings are being targeted to try and get them to see things from the storyteller's point of view. I think it is an education that is never addressed specifically, but it's something so crucial to us being able to live our own lives the way we want to live them. Soon, I'm going to be starting to add another video per week. I don't know exactly how soon, but soon, I promise, okay? I'll be posting a video on top of my regular Thursday ones that is just about what I'm learning and what I'm practicing regarding storytelling, and then passing that on to you guys in the videos so that you can learn to not be manipulated, but learn to be persuaded when you choose to be. I love you guys. Thanks for watching my channel. I really appreciate it. It gives me motivation to actually do this stuff, knowing that some people are waiting to see what I have to share. I'm really excited to get this aspect going, and we will see you next week. But until then, stay blessed.
Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the times. Welcome to the final show. I hope you're wearing your best clothes.